Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So in this video I'm going to show you, as I had promised, how you can use the existing source code on ALG's GitHub to build yourself an ISO of ALG for yourself. So this is not meant for project use, but this is only for personal use, you know, the trademark thing, everything. So I had been requested to keep the code online on both Discord and Telegram, and so here it is all public archived on GitHub. And what I'm discussing in this video, this is a disclaimer by the way, whatever I'm going to talk about in this video is going to be ISO building, and ISO building is like one last part of the entire puzzle. So I obviously cannot cover the whole puzzle here because the video will be very long. So I plan to do a series, so tell me in the comment section if you want videos on the other topics as well, how to set up the installer, how to set up the file system, etc. So tell me in the comment section if you want to see videos on that, right? What you will see in this video is basically how to build the ISO, the final, just take the code and how you can build it so that you have an ISO in hand. And this will actually, the whole journey is pretty boring, honestly. So when you start by building ISOs, you will have something in hand. So that will make at least the start really exciting, because it's a lot of hair pulling, a lot of trial and error, a lot of, you know, debugging, testing and stuff like that. So the workflow that I'm going to show you in this video works for all the editions that I ever made. For example, if you see here, I am on Mate, and this is what, July version. Now if you remember, Mate had been discontinued in March, I believe. So how do I have Mate here? So that's what I'm going to show you here, how you can build any of the editions that I made, because all the source code is online. For example, if you see, if you remember, there was a Studio edition, so you can go ahead, see the profile of Studio, and you can build this. So it's not just the existing editions, you can go ahead and build yourself any of the editions that I had offered. So the existing editions, if you just go and search for download ALG, go to the website, and you can go ahead and see the existing editions. So we have Plasma, Plasma Pure, Gnome, Gnome Pure, XFC, XFC Pure, then we have Cinnamon, No Pure for Cinnamon, i3, and the experimental Zen. So you can build all of this plus everything that has been phased out. So PSPWM, Mate, Mate Pure, Cinnamon Pure, Studio that I just showed. So right now I'm here on Mate, and actually this is running off GNOME boxes. So I'm the host system is GNOME actually. So what I've decided is to show you how to build the Plasma edition, Plasma Pure, which I call the flagship. So that's what I'm going to be discussing here today. So first things first, let's go ahead and clear the terminal, and we want to take a look at a couple of things. So if I'm going to show you the output of bash rc, bash rc is basically the file that defines how your shell behaves. So this, by the way, resides in your home directory. So this is the bash rc that I ship with the themed editions, all of them. So Plasma, XFC, GNOME, Mate, Cinnamon, all of them have these. Now this is important because this makes our lives easier, a lot easier. So for example, if I have to type sudo pacman-sy, I can just type in sync, and that will give me this, right? So I don't have to type all of this command. For example, whenever we have the error which talks about, oh, the databases can't be synced or it can't be updated. For example, if I type update, it's going to start a full system upgrade. What is that? Sudo pacman-syu. So sometimes we have this error where we are not able to synchronize or update the databases. All you have to type is unlock. What it does, removes this db.log file. So aliases, the reason I'm discussing it is because it's really important. So I'm just going to open the bash rc file, rc, and I'm going to add an alias here, and this alias is going to be known as MakeISO. You can name it anything really, but I really use this, so I'm just showing you what I did. And then MakeISO, don't worry what MakeISO is, but we are just going to use that. So MakeISO -v dot, and we are going to talk about all of that later on. So the first thing you need is obviously Git, because you need to clone this repository. So what you want to do is first make sure Git is installed. Now in this system it is installed, right? You also want to make sure you have base devel installed. So again, it is installed. So base devel has a lot of packages that normally we need. So I'm just going to cancel this. Now we also need Arch ISO. Now what is Arch ISO? Let's go ahead and see. Arch ISO GitLab, and where is it? Let's see, this one. So Arch ISO is a set of tools that all of us use to build the ISOs. So the official Arch Linux team uses it. I used it for ALG. Projects like Endeavor OS, Arco Linux, they use it as well. At the heart of Arch ISO, you have this script here. Where should it be? I think it's in scripts. Run Arch ISO. No, not this. Arch ISO. Make Arch ISO. This is the script. So this is a shell script that basically runs this. So you can use this, modify this. But if you have modified the file system already, which I have done, so you can go ahead and just run the script with sudo make arch ISO -v, what we just did in the bash rc. So I can just type in make ISO like this, and it will run. So now it's not going to run this because we need to source our bash rc. So sourcing can be done by source.bash rc. That's done. So now I can just go ahead and type make ISO. So now the profile is missing, obviously, so we can't build it, but I just want to show you what we are doing. So this is the script that is running. This resides in sbin or bin, I believe, and we are going to use this. Now everyone has their own way of using make arch ISO. Endeavor OS, for example, have a script that runs off it. So there's one script that runs before, there's a somewhere here, if you see squash fs. So Endeavor OS, they run a script before that. I do it a different way. Arco Linux do it a different way. Everyone has their own way. So I'm just going to show you how. We're not going to go into file system and stuff like that, because my way of doing is modifying the file system. So let's just go direct to ISO building right now. So I'm going to, let's go to our documents maybe, or let's just do it here in the home folder. What's the issue, right? Nothing's going to go wrong. So I'm just going to git clone and paste it. So now we have, when I open the file manager here, we have this Arch Linux GUI Plasma, which we just cloned. All right, so let's open this and see its contents. So that couple of things that we don't require normally. It is the license, we don't need that. Git commit, this is just a script to directly commit to master, and it's a very, it's a stuff that lazy people like me do. You shouldn't do that, right? And since I was the only one like building the ISOs and doing stuff like that, one-man stuff, I had the script. If you are contributing to source code in which there are many contributors, that shouldn't exist. So that's that. Services.sh, you don't really need it, but anyways, I'm just going to show you what it is. So I just want to display the contents, and this is Pluma, by the way. Mate is text editor, really nice. I think this is what gedit like is the descendant of Pluma. Anyways, so this is basically a script to make changes to the file system. Again, this is something that we'll talk about later on, so I think this can go for the time being. README can also go, and then we are left with a couple of packages. So we have a couple of files. So we have AI root fs, this is our root file system. We have EFI boot for computers that will boot via EFI, and then we have syslinux for computers on legacy. So this is legacy BIOS, this is EFI BIOS, and this is our root file system. Now we have two scripts here, bootable usb.sh and cleanup.sh. Now this is basically a script that I made that enables you to make bootable USBs really easily instead of having to type I'm sorry instead of having to type all of these commands manually one by one, because I test on hardware. This really just, you can /bootable usb.sh and it runs. Cleanup is a script that we'll be using. I'll talk about this later on. Packages x86-64. So what is this? This is basically the packages. All of the packages that are going to come into the ISO, they are going to be here. So for example, we have NVIDIA tools here, we have the AUR helper, we have the icons here, we have video software, printing, we have cups, we have fonts. For example, Noto font CGK, this is the Chinese, Japanese, Korean support. We have the Office suite, we have Firefox and its settings, we have the theming, installer and stuff like that. So you can see stuff like ALG Firefox settings or ALG theme settings, or maybe somewhere here you will see ALG Plasma settings. So these are the custom packages of ALG that I made, which were for obviously theming and stuff like that. So what are the others? The others are packages that either come from the AUR, for example Paru. If you can see, where is Paru? I just saw it actually. Paru, this comes from the AUR, but everything that is not coming from the AUR, this is coming from the official Arch Linux repositories. All right, so we have display server Zorg, we have our display manager as DDM because this is Plasma. So you'll notice that for every desktop environment this changes. So if there was GNOME, instead of SDDM there would be GDM. All right, now our shell is going to be bash, which is already defined somewhere here. So we just want bash completion that allows us to tab and autocomplete. The network manager, the network managing tool is going to be network manager. So we have that. You could use something like something else, but well, network manager just works best for wired and wireless systems. So we have our kernel headers here. We have base devel pre-installed. So you can choose to remove this, and the amount of things that you remove, that will reduce the ISO size. So that's that. So we are installing the whole Plasma suite. What do I mean by this? This is actually Plasma group. So if I search for Plasma group, okay, not that group, Arch. These are all the packages that will be installed. So groups in Arch Linux package management are a bunch of packages that need to stick together in order for some kind of functionality to function. So in the case of Plasma desktop environment, you can see all of these come along. For example, you have Oxygen, the theming, you have support for Thunderbird, you have the system monitor, SDDM and stuff like that. All right, so where is it? Here is it. So this is the suite. So this is the Plasma group, but everything else here is packages. All right, and then what else do we have? We have extra applications for Plasma. So the Plasma group doesn't have a terminal window, so we use Plasma. So I, for the Plasma edition, have console. You don't have a text editor in the Plasma group. So the Plasma group basically has stuff that, you know, will make sure Plasma will work as a desktop environment. But then you need applications like a text editor, or terminal, or text editor, a file browser, and then, you know, a screenshot utility. So these are all. GwenView is the photo viewer, Arc is the archive tool, and KCalc is the calculator. Obviously we have NeoFetch pre-installed. PackageKit Qt5 is the backend for Discover. So a lot of people don't like Discover, but anyways, since it's being installed because of the Plasma group, you can have that. Pulse Audio Bluetooth is basically to enable if you have Bluetooth devices like headphones or buds or whatever, you can just connect them to your computer or laptop via Pulse Audio. So that's that. The installer, specifically we have Grub as the bootloader, and then we have Calamares, which is the installer. This is the Calamares configuration. This is OS Prober. So Calamares configuration, this is something I'll talk about in another video, because then we are already 13 minutes into the recording. So let's go ahead and build the ISO. Enough explaining. I think I'll talk about the file system and everything else in the next video. So just go ahead and we need to cd into the directory first of all. So remember that we cloned this into this, and then we need to be in this directory. So you can either go ahead and open in terminal, which will lead you to this, or you can just, wherever you are, go ahead and go to that folder. So I can list the contents, and it's the same things that we have here, right? Now ISO building is a very resource intensive process, so I'm just going to close each and everything here. All right, and I'm just going to type in MakeISO, and I'm going to be making a deliberate mistake here just to show you something. So I type MakeISO, and then I get this error: no usable package repositories configured. I did this deliberate mistake because some of you ran into this issue, and the reason is, let's go ahead and look at our pacman.conf. So let me open the file here. we have a pacman.conf here. So if you see, we have the repositories here. We have core, extra, community. So these are stuff that you see here. If I type in sync, you have core, extra, community. So remember, when I'm talking about packages that are coming from either the AUR or the ALG packages, the installer and ALG theming, this and that, where are they coming from? Because they're obviously not in core, extra and community, right? They're coming from custom repositories. So one of those custom repositories is ALG repo, which contains the AUR packages plus the installer and its configuration and patches. And then there is ALG settings, which contains the settings, which is theming and all of that stuff. And there's chaotic AUR. Now chaotic AUR is not required actually in the case of Plasma, because nothing in the Plasma edition comes from chaotic. But in some editions, for example i3 and BSPWM, they use some applications, for example better lock screen. And in the case of Mate, for example, this brisk menu, this is also in the AUR, so this comes from chaotic AUR as well. So why am I using chaotic and why I'm not putting these packages in my own repository? Because simple, I have a limit. It's what, 200 MB, I guess. So I can't put more applications into these repositories. And obviously chaotic AUR, I'll make a separate video on that, how it is now more of a generic AUR repository rather than just Garuda's repository. All right. So now we have talked about the repositories, but we need to get them on the system. So what I'm going to do is close without saving. Well, I should have saved it actually. Let me do that. I'm just going to, or wait, I'll just copy it. I'll just show you how you can get AUR, because you will be building, right? So let's go ahead and do this. You can type in sudo cp pacman.conf/etc/pacman.conf. all right, there we have it. So now if I type in sync, we are going to get an error because chaotic requires a chaotic mirror list. So what we are going to do is comment that out. So sudo nano, now we are going to do go to the pacman.conf in our own system. So this is the pacman.conf. We can go ahead and comment chaotic at the moment and type in sync. So now we have the ALG repositories as well. All right, now this is ALG repo should be like below community. I have it above because of a package that had to be downgraded. I'll talk about that when we are talking about Calamares. It's regarding to the installer. So normally if you want something to come from your own repository rather than core extra community, even though it exists there, you can just put your repository above core extra community in pacman.conf. So normally if you see, the ALG repo would be below community, but because I want a certain application, a certain package to come from my repository rather than extra, I have put it above. And that why I have done that is basically, I'll talk about that in the video where we talk about Calamares and how to get the installer set up. So now if you want to set up chaotic, you need to install two packages which will come from ALG repo, and these are the chaotic keyring and chaotic mirror list. The error, remember? So install that. All right, and now we can just go back and pull up our pacman.conf. Let's go to chaotic and we can uncomment it and we can sync again. So now we have chaotic AUR in our pacman.conf, and now we have, instead of just core extra community, we have all of these extra repositories. Now these are not going to be shipped into the system. All right, the pacman.conf that is being shipped, let me show you that. It's a different one. So let's go to AI rootfs etc, and we have a pacman.conf here. So as you can see here, there are no extra repositories. So this is the one that is going inside the ISO. Don't be confused with this one. This one is just this one. This one is just for building the ISO. All right. So let's go ahead, open the where's the terminal, and let me get this here. Let me get this here because I want to show you. Now let's go ahead and talk about the cleanup script. We have a work directory here. This basically contains the unsquashed or uncompressed ISO here. So this is work, and there will be an out folder that will have the compressed ISO. All right, so this is going to be really big, and for example, the ISO that the current Plasma ISO is 2.4 gigabytes. So the work folder is going to be around 10-15 gigabytes, which is uncompressed, so that you can see the contents, each and everything that is inside that. And then there is an out folder which basically will have the .iso file, which is going to be compressed in what file system? SquashFS. That is why we talk about, that's why I said work is going to be unsquashed. So let's go ahead and run the cleanup script. One thing that you need to remember is whenever you are building a new ISO, you need to clean up your folders. That means work and out cannot exist, and that is basically what the cleanup script does. It's a simple script that removes work and out. That's it. So let's go ahead and type MakeISO. All right, and there we are. We are going. So now this is going to use packstrap, which is a script that we use to get all of the packages and create a file system where in work. All right, so it's going to be creating a file system. If you go to, so it's creating the file system. Right now what it's doing is downloading all of the packages. So this will take how much? 14 seconds, 13 seconds. And so this completely depends on your internet connection. You want to make sure you are connected to the fastest mirror. Now the reason it has slowed down is because Paru is not in the official repository, so this is coming from my own repository. That's why it has slowed down. So once all of these are coming from my personal repositories, so now that is it has gone back to the Arch repositories. You can see the speed has increased again, and all of this is being created in x86-64 AI rootfs. All right. So now it's going to go ahead and install it here in the work folder. So in the Plasma edition, we have 955 packages on the live ISO, and obviously some of them are going to be removed post installation. So what are going to be removed, I'll talk about in another video where we discuss the installer setup. All right, so now it's like you can see it's installing all of these packages that we just downloaded, where again, so you see the contents here have increased because the file system is being created here. So let's go back down so that it gets to do what it wants. So the file system, this is exactly, if I open another another file manager of Mate, I forgot the name. If I go to file system here, and this is the file system, this is root, right? If I open a terminal here, if I pwd, this is root, my root of this system. You see this and this pretty similar, right? So this is what this script is doing. It's creating a new file system inside AI rootfs. So that is why the contents here are there. So this is going to take some time. I'll be back when this is done. All right. So now it's doing the most CPU intensive task ever. Not ever. Why did I say that? So you can see that make SquashFS. This is taking up a lot of 100 everywhere. So this is going to take some time. I'll be back when this is done. Alright, so the ISO building is complete. It took 5 to 10 minutes again because I am on an SSD, and the CPU power, everything is very important. Now I'm using a VM here, but this is KVM, so the performance is near metal like. I used 10 CPU cores, as you can see here, and how much I had allocated, like 6 gigabytes of RAM to this VM, and yeah, a very fast SSD, a Gen 4 SSD. So if you do it on hardware like this, it takes a little less time. Earlier I used to build this on my laptop, which had 8 gen CPU, 4 gigs of RAM, and 8 gigs of RAM, 4 cores, like that. You have seen that in the older videos, right? So in that it used to take around like 30 minutes or so. It was on a hard disk. So very resource intensive stuff, and if you have good hardware, then it definitely reduces the time, because these ISOs, I know they are going to work. What I just showed you, the code, everything here, it works, all right? So you don't have to pull your hair and try to figure out if something's not working. But when I did it, obviously a lot of things did not work, and having to rebuild ISOs and them taking a lot of time, it's frustrating, all right? So when you have better hardware and the ISOs build faster, it's usually very good for debugging and testing. So that's just a little bit about the hardware. Now you can go ahead and directly run bootable usb.sh if you are doing this on real machine to make a bootable USB. Now the only consideration you have to take here is that this assumes that you have a hard disk installed. So that hard disk will be SDA, and then the bootable USB that you put in will be SDB. If that's not the case, you only have NVMe's like me, then you can go ahead and change this. Now I created this script back when I was doing this on laptops which had a hard disk, obviously. So you can change the script accordingly. If you have 2 hard disks, then you want to change that to SDC. Now anyways, we need to test this. So we can do this 2 ways. Arch ISO provides a run arch ISO command. It's useless. So we'll just go ahead and open our friend VirtualBox. It's funny because I'm opening a VM inside a VM. But anyways, we're going to type in new arch plasma, and next I can assign it how much, 2048 out of 6 GBs, and create a VDI dynamically allocated. I can allocate 20 because I have 80 gigs in this VM. So 20 gig VM on an 80 gig VM. So that's how it is. So I need to go ahead and go to settings, and I can probably allocate a little more resource. So I'll allocate how much? 4 cores is good. Display is fine. Let's go ahead and add the ISO that we just created. So it is inside home, Arch Linux GUI, out. So by the way, if you open this guy here, we go to Arch Linux GUI, out. So like I said, the file system which is uncompressed is here under XCT. Where is it? Yeah, rootfs. This is our file system for the live ISO. This has everything for the main ISO, which will be used to get your this loader and stuff like that. So EFI systems will use this, legacy systems will use this, so on and so forth. We'll talk about the file system in another video. And this is our ISO, so you can use this. All right. So now what I can do is just go ahead, close this, open. Well, I can just close this because I want to save some resource as well. Choose OK, start the VM. There it is, we have this. So now I'm going to close this and just show you how you can start EFI. So it's just general VM stuff. You can go to settings, system, enable EFI, OK, start, and you have this, right? So you can select free and open source drivers because running this off VirtualBox. Let me, or should I not? Let's just wait for it to load. It's going to end up in a full screen anyways because the ISO has the systemd link. We'll talk about all of these things. The goal of this video was only to show you how the ISO building process is done. So this is obviously going to take some time because this is a VM running inside another VM. If I'm going to show you like this, can I show you like this? So there it is. We have Plasma ISO here, and we open the terminal, version, Plasma. We just created this. That's pretty much it, guys. So you can go ahead and do whatever you want to do with it. you have your installer. Now setting up the installer and all of that will be done in a separate video. The goal of the video, like I've reiterated multiple times, is just to show you how you can start building the ISOs. So you can do the same thing with the Studio Edition. You can do the same thing with all the editions that I have. Let me show. Let's go to history. So yeah, there's it. This is the repositories. These are the repositories. Basically, you can go ahead and build any edition that you like, and that's pretty much it. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a nice day. This is a 30-minute recording, so like I said, everything else will be in a separate video. So tell me down in the comment section if you want to see those videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a nice day.